Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode on the show, Control or Be Controlled. Podcast designed to help you start thinking differently and take control of your life. And as always, I remain your wonderful host. As always, your special host, Darlington. Our guest for today is Teddy Bloom. He's the creator of Ride for Rights, a remarkable cross-country bicycle journey from the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. Using the money he had saved for his first home, Teddy chose instead to ride more than 3,000 miles across America to promote four core principles: free speech, equal justice under the law, civic education, and national unity. Along the way, he's battled extreme weather, equipment failures, injuries, and countless obstacles, all to spark conversations about respect, understanding, and what it means to be American. Teddy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, what you have is so wonderful, Teddy. So I'm so curious to know what inspired you to give up the money you have saved for your first home and invest it in Ride for Rights.
Well, it came up early. So when the Trump administration was elected the second time, I really wanted to do something. I wanted to do something different. So the first time Trump was elected, I live in New Mexico, which is a border state with Mexico. So they were deporting people from work in my state, but they weren't checking if there was anybody at home. So there ended up being a lot of orphan kids that were running around the state. And I wanted to, so when he got elected a second time, I thought it would get worse, and it has. So I wanted to do something early. I wanted to do something different. I'm not really a guy that gets up and screams and shouts, so I wanted to do kind of a protest, but something uh, that got a lot of different people involved. As far as like spending my own money to do it, I knew this was going to be a very important time in American history, and I wanted to be a part of it. And I didn't want to be 30 years down the road and have to look in the mirror and wish I did something different. So that was kind of my motivation. It was a big decision to use the money which I had set aside to buy my first house for this, but it was not as difficult as people think, because I did believe in the cause and think it was a very, very important thing to do. So yeah.
Okay, so why did you choose a cross-country bicycle ride as your way of bringing people together? I mean, there can be other ways, right?
Oh yeah. So like I said, I wanted to do something that would like get a lot of people together, but get a lot of different people from all over the country. And I was thinking like, oh, I could walk across the country or run. I was like, it would take forever. My knees would blow out. And then I thought like, I bet I could ride a bike. And then once I got that in my head, I couldn't really stop thinking about it. I started routing every day. I was like, oh, I could start at the Golden Gate Bridge. That's pretty iconic. I could end in DC. It's political, so I should end in Washington, DC. And yeah, day by day, it just became more and more of a reality. And I started doing it in late February, early March. And by April 20th of 2025, I was out the door riding. I was interested to do something across the country for another reason too. So, like I said, I live in New Mexico, which borders Mexico. But my family lives in a state called Ohio, which has a water border with Canada, and I would go back for Christmas every year. So the Christmas before this, I went back and I was talking to people in Ohio, and everybody was just obsessed about the immigration issue in America. And I'm thinking, like, man, it's not that big of a deal out here. Why are people in Ohio way more worried about this than people in New Mexico? So, as much as the protest was me trying to get people out and get a lot of people involved, I was also curious going across the country, like what news everybody was receiving around the country, what everybody thought, how people were reacting to the political climate, and kind of getting the vibe across the country was something I was interested in. So that was another reason for me wanting to go out and try something coast to coast.
Wow, wonderful. So your ride is built around four principles: free speech, equal justice, civic education, and unity. Where were those the values you wanted to champion? Why these four values? Why not five? Or why not six? Or why not different values than this?
Mhm. So I wanted the protest to be strictly about preserving democracy. So when I started this, there wasn't like a no kings protest or anything going on. So there was nothing. If you wanted to protest the current administration or were unhappy about things, you kind of had to attach yourself to another group or another cause. And I wanted something strictly that could bring a lot of people together from different socioeconomic backgrounds, racial backgrounds, different. Didn't matter if you were liberal or conservative, just people that really thought democracy was under threat and they wanted to be vocal about keeping it in America. Now the four values, I made those because those are four things that you need democracy to work. You need free speech to be able to express yourself to the people who govern about your wants and needs and what's actually happening. You need justice to protect your free speech. You need education so you know what's happening with you, you know what's affecting your situation, and you know what would make it better. And then unity is more of a feeling where if you're promoting something, it should be for yourself or for the benefit of others. It should not be just to screw over other people. So I came up with those. Those are the four things. And the concept of the ride was preserving democracy. And I called it Ride for Rights because those free speech, justice, education, and unity were the four rights. So that's kind of the genesis of the ride. It was kind of a catch-all. I wanted it the mission statement to be very succinct, and that's what I did. So it's strictly about preserving democracy in the USA.
Okay. Thank you so much. So after traveling hours of mine and meeting people across America, what have you learned about the country that surprised you the most?
What was really I'll answer that a couple times because there's a few different things. What was really positive, what I learned about the country is you see a lot of like rage and anger on social media and in the news and stuff. And I was wondering like how much it actually was happening in the country or if there was any violence or what was going on. And honestly, the people I met in person, it was just very positive. Uh, Everybody was very calm. Even if they didn't agree with me, they respected the level of effort I was putting in. And it was good to discover that a lot of the stuff you see on social media is just kind of manufactured. It's not really what's going on when you go on the ground and actually talk and meet people. So that was really good to see. One of the negative things to see was just how much people are getting lied to with their news sources. Because no matter where I went in the country, I kind of touched on this earlier when I was talking about how people from Ohio looked at the immigration issue very differently than people from New Mexico. What you get in your news is very targeted based on your location. So when I left on this trip, I knew you were getting like news and social media targeted on your political, if you were like liberal or conservative. I could have guessed you got news based on your socioeconomic background, which is true based, if you're more rural or live in a city or you're based or your wealth basically. But no, it does seem like there is a big difference about what people get in the news based on where they live. And it was kind of sad to see how much people were getting lied to, which is unfortunate. And that definitely is causing the big divide of people say the country is kind of breaking apart philosophically. I think that had quite a lot to do with it. So those were a couple things I found very surprising as far as just meeting people, talking to people, reading the local news, and riding around through all the neighborhoods and stuff around the country.
Okay, so uh, you have faced hail, extreme heat, and powerful wind, injuries, and broken equipment. So why did you not quit with all these things happening? What
I mean, I
moment?
really. Oh, sorry.
Okay, go on.
No, I really believed in the purpose of the whole mission too. Like I had some really tough days. I was riding in the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. I strained my hamstring early, and I almost quit there. I had to take 4 days off in a small town called Fallon to like rehab my hamstring and get it going. And it was an injury that bothered me kind of throughout the whole ride, but I made it through. Um, One of the hard things about it too is just you don't know what day is going to be hard a lot of times. Like if you're injured, it's going to be a hard next day. But like one day I was in Kansas, which is not the most geographically difficult. It's no mountains or anything, but it was 104 degrees. I had a 30-mile-an-hour headwind with like 50-mile-an-hour gusts, and that was like really tough. I got sick that day, and I had to take the next day off. Um, I got caught in a snowstorm in the Sierra Nevadas too, so I had to take a day off just because I was snowed in. I couldn't ride anymore. I got chased by a bunch of dogs in Missouri one day. That was pretty hard. And then one of the really, really difficult aspects about riding across the country that I don't think a lot of people talk about is just grinding. It took me 4 months. It was April 2025 to August 2025. And about especially like the last 3 weeks, I was just kind of mentally done. But in my head, I'm like, yeah, you made it this far. You got to keep going. You got to keep going. So, but yeah, you get homesick. You get tired of doing kind of riding every day, and there's a lot to press through. But on top of that, there's a lot of good things too. Like I had some gorgeous days. I rode through beautiful parts of the country I would have never seen in my life if I didn't do this. Going over the Vale Pass in the Rocky Mountains was beautiful. The Gap Trail um, in the Appalachian Mountains was one of the best trails in the country. That was great. I met all sorts of wonderful people who helped me out, who were complete strangers. I'd called friends that I hadn't talked to in 10 years, and they would let me stay at their house for a night or something just to rest and get a shower and stuff. So there was it when you're on a trip that long, it's everything good and everything bad is just going to happen. It's not kind of like a luck based thing. It's almost like you're out there enough statistically, you know, it's going to even out your good luck and your bad luck. So yeah, it was an interesting trip, but you did have to be like very mentally prepared for anything to happen, basically.
Okay, so what was the moment that tested you most amidst all which uh, uh, tough moment?
Well, what tested me the most was after the hamstring injury. So I injured my hamstring. I got snowed in the next day. Um, I was actually staying at I forget the town, Pollock Pines, California, and I was walking to the pharmacy during a hailstorm, and it was like raining, all kind of hail, and a lady was nice enough to offer me to drive me to the pharmacy and then take me back to my motel. The next day, it was starting to really bug me. I went up to a town called Khyber, and I was supposed to go to Lake Tahoe that day, but it was still snowy over the pass. So I had to stop in a small town called Khyber, which was basically a motel, a gas station, and a Korean restaurant, and that was it. And then going over Lake Tahoe was one of the hardest. Over the pass to down to Lake Tahoe was one of the hardest days. I had to keep getting off my bike because my hamstring hurt so bad. I think it took me like 7, 8.5 hours for the whole ride, maybe 9. I gotta look that up again. But yeah, it took a long time to go seven because it was 17 miles uphill basically to start. And then I got to the top of the hill, which was the top of the ski resort. I was going to go down the hill, down the mountain roads to get down. And I turned the corner to go down. There's still 2 feet of snow on the road. It's like, ah, crap. So I had to go back uphill another mile or 2 miles and then go down the main highway, which was not safe for bikes. There was nowhere to ride. And people were going like 55 miles an hour past me as I was like flying downhill next to the edge of like the edge of a cliff. So that was just a really hard sequence of events, and I had a few. The next day was just getting over the final mountain of the Sierras. Then I was on the other side, but it was still bugging me, and that's when I had to stop in Fallon. So that was just dealing with the injury was definitely the hardest thing. Other things, there was other difficult things, but you just kind of roll with it. You have flat tires. Saddle sores were something you were always worried about. So you always you got to put baby powder on, or you're gonna get sores on your butt basically, and that was something you had to worry about constantly and take care of because that could end your trip. Um, yeah, there's a lot of little things, but there was always someone to help me out, and yeah, that was definitely the hardest, and it was super early in the trip too. So it definitely made me wonder of how far I was going to get in the trip total because I didn't know if I'd finish at that time or not. So, but yeah, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, sure. Uh, I have conversations with people from different political background. Or so, how have they shaped your own views or strengthened your views?
So what I learned on the ride is the way people get media based on their political background, especially social media, but also pretty much other kinds, including like cable news and even mainstream news. If you have if you're more conservative, you're receiving more news that makes you feel fear. If you're more liberal, you're receiving more news that makes you feel anger. And that's kind of how the country is breaking apart a little bit. So that's kind of, they basically spin the news, make propaganda to make you feel a feeling. So that's part of the manipulation. More than misinforming people, it's about manipulating your emotions more than the information itself, oftentimes. So my advice to people that are listening from America or anywhere is like when you hear a story and it makes you feel a feeling, like think about it first, like see if it's a reasonable information. So that was one thing I learned heavily about what people thought about things and what kind of news people were receiving. What everybody is also told is that you're the normal one, like you're the one that's normal. Everybody that isn't like you is crazy, and that's just not true. But that's kind of what everybody else is being told right now. So that was another thing that was concerning to see, um, that was happening as I was going across the country.
So, Tom, why do you believe that respectful disagreement is essential to healthy democracy?
No, I think it's absolutely important. Like people should be able to express themselves what they believe, whether it's palatable or not. Part of free speech is not just supporting things you like. It's about understanding what the total vibe is of the country and understanding how people feel about certain things and how people react to certain things. Being able to have an outlet for what you believe in, even if it's kind of unsavory, is important for democracy because it really shows the politicians the vibe and how to govern. That's why in like well-run democratic countries, unlike third fascist countries, when there's a in fascist countries when someone new comes into power, often it's quite a violent rebellion and a release from the people who have been oppressed. So the point of democracy is that to make people feel like they're not oppressed and have a voice and have some kind of control over what's happening. And honestly, when I was going through the country, people were still very good at just having quiet discourse or having a good conversation about it. Again, it wasn't social media was not an accurate portrayal of what I saw as I was riding through the country. People were much more subdued, much more thoughtful when I was actually talking to people around, and that was very heartwarming to see.
Thank you so much, Tom. That was very wonderful to as I was actually so good. So, uh, what role do you think civic education plays in reducing polarization and misinformation, especially for the kids?
Well, I think it's important for civic education is like understanding like history and how things work badly, but a lot of the misinformation surrounding here has to do with human rights and like how to treat people who are different than you, and that's really unfortunate how it works. There's a lot of lying about like statistics about how drugs are coming in, and there's a lot of lying about like what people are doing um, around here and stuff. So one of the things I think people need to know is like how immigration affects the economy, because there's always the tale of like immigrants come in and take people's jobs, but then you have a place like Springfield, Ohio, which is in the news very recently, where they were able to use Haitian immigrants to really boost their economy. So that's one of the things they've really latched onto, which is just a complete inaccuracy. There's also the inaccuracy of like people jumping over the border to commit crimes and whatnot like that, and saying all these people have visas, and they're drastically lying about the numbers, especially in the eastern part of the country, about how many people are crossing the border. I was told by several people there's like millions coming across the border. As I heard outrageous numbers, and I live around here, and it's a desert. Like there's not that many people here in the first place. If that many people were coming over, it would be incredibly obvious to me. So there's a lot to learn about economics. There's a lot to learn about like human rights and how to treat people. And one of the things I do want to point out is people that really that were more racist, honestly, that I ran into. Um, they were able to separate out the word immigrant from human being, which I thought was very interesting. So one story I heard was I was talking to someone in Indiana, and they were from Germany, so they were white, and they were an immigrant, very obviously German. They had a very hard accent, and one of her coworkers goes up to her and says, "You know what's great? They're going to get rid of all the immigrants now." And to that, the German lady was like, "Oh, thanks," very sarcastically, and then the lady backtracked. But it shows, like in that lady's head, immigrant doesn't mean someone that came over to the country. Immigrant is someone, it's a slang word for criminal. And that's not good that has been kind of the opinion of people in the country. And that's something that comes from a lack of education and basically social media and news manipulating their opinions about a situation. So I think there needs to be a lot of civic education about what affects your life, how the immigration system works, which also the government is abusing how broken our immigration system is. Like a lot of people that are getting detained, what I did see is like when ICE does an active raid, they don't go to like the most dangerous areas in the city where there is like crime. They go to like some middle class neighborhood and start picking people up. So they're picking people up that are not trying to come here illegally or not trying to be unauthorized, which is the real term. But because the system is just so poorly written, some of them don't have authorization to be here because of just poor law. But they're framing it as these people are criminals that have like jumped over the wall and whatnot. In reality, they showed up on a plane, and then something happened in the process where they have to go back to court because some paperwork was not filed correctly or something like that. So yeah, there's quite a bit of um, education people need about what's going on here.
Okay, talking about education, there's education and there's the right education. People can be taught the wrong thing. So how can we ensure that we are taught the right thing in civic education?
Um, I mean, it's up to the people, honestly. Like, there's always people that are going to come at you with an angle, and it's a we have an education system that's a very well funded public education system. So, as a public funded education with taxpayer money, like when people have opinions about what should be taught, I think that's really important. I think it's true in America, and I think it's true in every country. Like they tend to skip over the unsavory parts and unsavory individuals that have existed historically in their country too. So there, you see this everywhere, and it's kind of it is harmful to a lot of people. But you know, it's it's people's business to be active in their community and be active in their school if something is getting taught incorrectly, and bring it up to the school board and the local city council. Which honestly, as an individual, you have a lot more influence over your city council and stuff because schools are handled locally. Um, as far as maybe adding a civic, there used to be a civics class in most public schools back in the 1970s here, and I think possibly adding that back to the high school curriculum would be really beneficial. Just talking about like how the government works, how certain things operate, I think would shed a lot of light with, especially with young people, on how the current administration is abusing like poorly written laws to get away with a lot. So
Okay. Uh, so what message would you give to someone who feels America is divided to ever come together again?
I mean, the people I met, I don't think it's going to be the divide. I feel like is very manufactured. again, meeting people in person was really nice and a very good experience overall, and it made me get a lot of hope for the future. My message to people like that are listening though is like you have to be active. Like it's not enough to be a keyboard warrior and stuff. If you want change to happen in the country, you have to get out and protest, and you have to be seen, and you have to make signs, and that's very important. Any prolonged protest in the U.S. has been successful over time to some extent. And if you're out there and there's consistent protest and people are active, things will change for the better. When I started this ride, it was what we talked about. It was about the four rights. It was about preserving democracy. But what I ran into a lot in the country was a lot of apathy too. So it was like trying to motivate people to get out and be active and do something and convince them like, hey, you do have agency. Like this, if you're active, things will change. So that's what I hope for, and that's my message to your guests or your listeners.
Okay, thank you so much. So, how are you able to do all this without leaning to a particular side of politics emotionally?
Um, I mean, I do believe in the unity aspect of it. Like, I don't feel like you have to be gripped by your side of politics. Like, the political parties for sure have gone farther and farther apart from each other. But the people that I met on the ground, there's certainly a more of a salad of what beliefs and things you want for the country that do differ. And I don't think the political parties currently represent the country very well as a whole. So, but I honestly do believe like as long as the U.S. stays a democracy, things will work out okay. It's certainly a dark time, unfortunately, but I do truly believe that's the most important part. And if I did this and sided with a particular side, it would kind of ruin the message too, because part of democracy is political discourse. It is being able to express all different opinions and have a seat at the table, so to speak. So I think that answers your question pretty well.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, as you approach Washington, D.C., what do you hope people remember long after Ride for Rights comes to an end?
I remember going. So I would do short rides at the in the big cities, and that way people could join me. If you had kids, it was like a really slow pace, and it was nice and easy, and it was like a little protest ride around town. It was usually a loop or something. Um, so the last real day I had, I was coming from a town called Harper's Ferry in Virginia, and that was like a 66-mile day coming into Virginia. So the last day was just a short ride around DC, but like the last like actual tough ride was 2 days before. I had a day off between. Um, yeah, I remember getting done, and I was ended in a park in Virginia, and I had kind of seen all the monuments from the other side of the river. I was just kind of sad. It was really interesting. Like this had been a huge part of my life. I was riding almost every day for 4 months. I'd had really the same schedule. It was uh, something that really pushed me, and it was I knew a chapter of my life had kind of ended. So it was an odd feeling too. It was kind of melancholy. I feel like that's what I was kind of feeling um, at the end of the ride.
All right, thank you so much, Tom. Thank you for sharing your incredible journey and for reminding us that meaningful change often begins with a conversation and sometimes with a single pedal stroke. Ride for Right is more than a bicycle ride. It's an invitation to listen, to learn, and to rediscover the values that can unite us together despite our differences. So, for those that would like to learn more about you or follow the Ride for Right journey, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I have a website which is just www.rideforrights.com with the number 4. I do a lot of work on YouTube. I'm doing a big video about the U.S. immigration system right now, which hopefully will be out soon. The YouTube channel is also Ride for Rights with the number 4, and then I also have an Instagram, Blue Sky, and subreddit, all Ride for Rights. So I hope your listeners come check me out.
Okay, thank you so much, Teddy. Uh, I was going to say, journey to Washington. Would you mind if someone joins you for the final journey?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
I said, would you mind if someone joins you on Ride for Ride for the final journey?
Oh yeah, it'd be always. I always want more people. That's for sure. So,
Okay, thank you so much. Uh, what you're doing is also important, it's also great. And the fact that you had to sacrifice the money for your home to do this. So I really wish you good luck, and I want everything to go according to how you have planned it. Thank you so much, Teddy, and have a wonderful day ahead.
thank you so much.